Absolutely. So let's come on to extremism.
Yeah, more extremism, which was something I spoke about last week in relation to the Prime Minister's speech about what he was proposing to do in the aftermath of the conviction. Conviction of the Southport murderer Axel Ridikabana. And I described it as an exercise in conspiring to conflate with the BBC, conspiring to conflate the issues of national security, extremism with terrorism. So to go back to summer 2024, Yvette Cooper said, action against extremism has been badly hollowed out in recent years, just when it should have been needed most. That's why I've directed the Home Office to conduct a rapid analytical sprint on extremism, to map and monitor extremist trends, to understand the evidence about what works to disrupt and divert people away from extremist views, and to identify any gaps in existing policy which need to be addressed to crack down on those pushing harmful and hateful beliefs and violence. So rather long-winded. Nonetheless, her team of civil servants did produce the so-called rapid analytical sprint, which by some miracle has been leaked to the Policy Exchange. Now, the Policy Exchange, therefore, have authored a document to respond to this. Worth noting that one of the authors is Andrew Gilligan of great repute going back to 2003 and the affair concerning Dr. David Kelly. But of course, as with all government leaks, it's assumed to be intentional, but to what end? And the sprint, as it's been referred to, written up by civil servants, has made great effort to shift the qualification of extremism from somebody possessing an ideology to behaviours of concern. So this just reinforces the point of view that it is being conflated with terrorism, which of course is subject to being redefined in order that it may be used to capture people more easily. The specific behaviours they refer to are violence against women and girls, misinformation and disinformation, and extreme violence and misogyny. Now, the Policy Exchange makes a repeated point of saying that it downplays Islamism, which they describe, not the civil servants, but the Policy Exchange, are describing as by far the greatest threat to national security. So just on that, it's interesting to note that previously William Shawcross, senior fellow at the Policy Exchange, back in 2018, was in conversation with the Prime Minister, the now Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. So I think if there's time, then this will just ask Vanessa for a little bit of comment on that and the Policy Exchange's leanings. But just to proceed for now, they were saying, or rather Shawcross previously has made the point about the PREVENT scheme. This should not be concerned with the 36% of referrals not concerning ideology or suspected terrorism, but pertain to mental health and vulnerabilities of young people. Now, the civil service document, this sprint, has also had trouble with Michael Gove's reworked definition of extremism, which we talked about a lot before, saying there were concerns that the last government's definition could be used against legitimate organisations and individuals, especially in the absence of a test of proportionality and reasonableness. Now, that's exactly what I was talking about last week with the example given by the BBC of Patriotic Alternative and how there was a complete double standard in the way that they were being looked at compared with the Labour Party. Now, really, what they are meaning by this is that they want to redefine it in such a way that anybody who contradicts the mainstream narrative can be captured as an extremist, and this is really no more than a tool with which to capture dissenting voices. Now, going back to what Mike has been talking about with regard to knife crime and the suggestion that violence has a great deal to do with this, which may not necessarily be denied. I've just picked out as an example the PlayStation game Fortnite, because this is something that is actively, in effect, opposed to what Idris Elba has been saying. He's made specific reference to the ownership of knives and samurai swords, and yet we see the BBC on their children's channel, CBBC, promoting the computer game Fortnite. So this is not a push for further online safety, but really to ask the question of parents, if children are going to be engaged or wasting their time with games like this, what are they expecting that the result would be. And of course, this plays completely into the hands of the government with their reworking of the definition of terrorism.
Thank you, Charles. Vanessa, any brief comments on that before we move on to Lebanon?
Well, no, not really, except that it's the ongoing infiltration of all of the UK government sectors, including security, by the Zionist movement, of course, which we've been talking about extensively.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Lebanon then.